Aloha, and welcome to another Candid Conversation. I'm really pleased this morning to welcome Bonnie Feigenbaum. Bonnie's almost a guinea pig for us because she's starting a lecture series. The lecture series is going to consist of 10 one-hour lectures, all done by university educators. Bonnie's the first one. Bonnie teaches at McGill, and you can see the smiling face beside me, much more attractive than looking at me, so you can watch her. Bonnie, welcome aboard. It's so good to have you with us.
Bonjour. Hi, I'm from Montreal, Quebec.
I forgot. Yeah. Why don't you give us a little bit of your background so that the audience can understand who you are, what you do, where you come from?
Well, I'm a lecturer at McGill University, as you said, Ron. I'm also a lecturer in marketing and management at the John Molson School of Business. I've lectured at Vanier College, LaSalle College, and Dawson College in personal finance as well as marketing. I used to be a bank manager. I was working in the marketing department of the bank. I also have worked in politics. I was a city councilor. I was the chief of staff for a federal member of parliament, and I've put together a lot of successful and sometimes unsuccessful election campaigns.
It's a varied background.
Yes, but marketing has always been the root foundation.
Yeah. You know, life is never a straight line.
No.
So it's kind of intriguing. This lecture series is important to me. We want to cover the 6 fundamental areas of life: parts, service, selling, marketing, finance, customer service, and have specialists like yourself do the work. Now, we've slated, you and I have talked about 4 different lecture series. We've started with the basic marketing. It's now available on the site.
Yeah, it's live.
It is live, baby. And every one of the 10 lectures are there. So yes. Tell us what you were trying to do with the basic marketing program.
Well, to me, marketing is really exciting. It's a way to connect with your clients. We see it in every day. I mean, think about those song lyrics, the commercial lyrics that are in your head. That's the way that the marketers are trying to create that connection with you. So what my series, the First Basics of Marketing series, is about is creating that connection, learning how to reach into your target market's mind and give them what they want, and to avoid some of the marketing mishaps that I allude to in my blog that is also live right now. With the marketing research series that I'm in the process of recording right now, that is, I'm a huge marketing research geek. I think it is the way that we see the future. When we are aware of what's going on in our environment, we can actually have the products, the services, the ideas in place as the population is realizing that they need it. And that's what I really love about marketing research. If it's done well, you can almost see the future. The other lecture series that we are planning on are an advanced marketing topics. So we'll do some advanced topics on product, price, place, an integrated marketing communications lecture series, as well as next year, we'll be launching a social marketing series talking about how to sell ideas and taking advantage of behavioral economics and the nudge theory.
One of the things that's interesting to me is that your lecture series are generic in tone. They apply to anything.
Well, yes.
And it's well, and that's, you know, the marketing goal is to anything and everything that has to do with getting a customer, a consumer to buy your product or to interact with you.
Absolutely. I mean, look what was going on, what we've seen since COVID, right? When we're talking, this is why marketing is so general. When we talk about marketing of the products, we had to sell masks. When we talk about marketing of services, we had to sell the idea of getting your vaccine to people who hopefully were open to it. And the marketing of ideas, we had to sell the idea of social distancing. Everybody had to learn to protect themselves with a bigger circle. And we could actually do research. GPS locations were able to tell us which provinces, which states, which cities were respecting these new ideas the most, how well we marketed this behavior change.
I think we, the pandemic, COVID, whatever you want to call it, has given us an interesting lesson relative to marketing. Governments have become marketeers.
Absolutely.
And we also have case studies now where you've got different approaches that were taken to COVID,
right,
to see, the end result of it. So, if you go back and think about fundamental things, like you said at the beginning, what song gets stuck in your head? We have a theme song that goes with everything we do. Everybody wants to rule the world, which is kind of a cynical take on my part. But with changing people's opinion, we run right up against the fact of people resisting change. So the story I like is we had a furniture store in Alberta when I was living there, called The Brick. And they did unbelievable pounding advertising. The volume on the televisions went up, radio everywhere, and they proved the frequency of the message gets there. The company went away, but the guy that did the advertising, the promotion, he ended up owning the damn company. Yeah. His role became so important to the success of that organization.
Well, frequency of the message is very, very important. But when you're talking about advertising, there's a two-part to it. There's the consumer's appreciation of the ad and the likelihood of them switching to the advertised product. So my favorite example, if I may, my favorite example, I have to tell everyone, huge Star Trek fan right here. Also, I love Coca-Cola. I'm the biggest brand ambassador, unpaid brand ambassador for Coca-Cola out there. So think about this. Chris Pine, who is the new James T. Kirk, he's sitting on the Enterprise, Star Trek Enterprise. He has a Pepsi in his hand, and he says, okay, engage. And for those of you who are Star Trek people, I'm mixing up two captains, but he says that I will, and it's a Pepsi commercial, engage, let's go. So I will load that commercial on my phone. I'll watch it every morning and every night because I love Chris Pine, love the commercial, but you will never get a drop of Pepsi in my mouth because I am a brand ambassador, a fidèle, as we say in French, a loyal Coke drinker.
Yeah.
So there's two parts to that, loving the commercial and loving the product.
Yeah, and it appears recently, anyways, that there's much more attention paid to loving the commercial than there is in quote hawking the product.
Sometimes we don't even know what the commercial is about until the end, when the brand is up there. Oh, I thought we were selling ladies' lingerie, not pop soda.
Yeah, and in our world, the frequency of the message, we sell parts at dealerships, equipment parts, engine parts, whatever. And we should have everybody at the counter, everybody who answers the phone, having a message that's consistent so that frequency of message happens naturally. We don't take advantage of things like that.
Yeah. So the buzzword we start using in marketing now is organically. It happens naturally. There's a narrative, a story that just flows. And the reason why we do that is because of social media. We want the population to take on our messaging, to pass it around. So it has to be a conversation that is natural to speak to your friends about with those words.
So also what I noticed in the lectures, the individual lectures, is you use examples of multiple brands, multiple industries, multiple areas, which is perfect. And I think they provoke people to think a little bit about their area. The change resistance that I'm seeing and that my daughter sees, and probably you do see it as well in education, is we don't have very many good teachers. No disrespect to teachers. There's a lot of very smart, talented people. And we seem to be we have a degree fantasy. And part of that is why we don't have enough blue collar jobs today, because everybody had to have a university education. But my feeling is, in talking to educators, the candidates that come to us from high school aren't prepared for the university experience.
You know, not everybody is. In French, we have an expression, ça prend tout le monde qui peut faire le monde tourner. It takes everyone to turn the world. There's a lot of different people out there.
Yep.
And, you know, I was, when I was working for the federal member of parliament, we put together a job fair. And one of the things that he said was, you know, it's after university that people will be getting jobs. And I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. No, we have a vibrant vocational college system where people finish high school. In Quebec, we go till grade 11, not grade 12. And then we have a 2-year junior college if to go directly into university, or a 3-year vocational college to go directly into plumbing, construction, accounting. And we need everyone. Not everybody needs a university degree. Not everybody has the capacity to have a university degree. In my family, I have a master's degree. My sister just finished high school. My oldest daughter is in the Navy, having dropped out of university. My middle one graduated from my alma mater, McGill University. And my youngest is in theater, never having just graduated high school, and her not her CEGEP, her theater school. See, I always try to promote my family and my girls. That's what a mom does. I'm the mother of marketing.
Well, one of the things that I wanted to be able to show with the podcast is the passion you bring to the job. It comes so naturally. You're a typical Quebecer. You talk with your hands.
Oh, I'm a typical Jew. I talk with my hands. That's what it is.
We got everything covered. You know,
but I just say that the reason I was telling you about my children was to tell you that we have to develop a respect for everybody's natural talents and validate them. That will make everybody's job and everybody's opinion more valuable to society.
Yeah. One of the things that I believe, and I think you've seen this in how we write and put things out, is the Socratic method. I don't answer questions. I provoke people to come to their own conclusions. And like you say, we've got all the voices are important. But the thing that seems to be happening recently is that if your voice isn't the same as mine, I become disrespectful of you. And that's hurting in my view, that's hurting the college or even the education model as a rule.
Yeah.
It's almost indoctrination. And that bothers the heck out of me.
No, the whole point of universities was to provoke thought, to discuss new ideas. And I mean, in Quebec, we're seeing it very, very, very strongly that when a university professor says something that triggers, that's the new word, triggers one of the woke snowflakes wokeness, the professor could get fired at this point, which is really, to me, detrimental to the education environment. We're supposed to be there at that point. It's supposed to be a safe place to just talk.
Yep.
And I think we're losing that.
The old debate principle, I was talking to the chancellor of the university a week and a half ago, and he's got a doctorate. He's older than I am, so he's been around a while. He's a 2-tour veteran of the Marines. Then he became dean of a school for the deaf and blind. And now he's chancellor of a university that's in 75 different countries. And I asked him, and we talked about this before we started, but I asked him, okay, what's the challenge now? He said, well, people coming into university today do not have critical thinking skills. And that's a byproduct of how we're taught, I believe. They don't have analytical skills. They struggle with communication skills.
Yeah.
And he says, as a rule, we have a year of remedial work in a 4-year degree, if it's a 4-year degree anymore, more than a 5. But we have a year of remedial work, putting the students in the position that they should have been coming out of high school.
Right. We pass everybody. we work with what we call now in Quebec education rubrics. Okay, so the students have to follow exactly the evaluation in order to get full marks. So now when you're teaching, they're not listening to engage, listening to absorb, listening to reformulate the thoughts in their own heads. They're just writing, so they can memorize the exact words, the exact phrasing. So I have to give them full marks. And what we find, like when I give an exam from 9 to 12, and if the exam runs late, like it's only starts at 9:15, you see the students panicking,
Yeah.
panicking, as if the information is just dripping out of their ears, because they only will retain it for that exam and then it's gone. And what's the point of that?
Zero.
What is the point of that? I always hated that type of learning. I prefer working with them, case studies, marketing reports, where I can work with them throughout the whole semester, give my feedback to them, and then we improve and improve. And if that means that at the end of the day, at the end of the semester, they get 100 on their report, because it has actually been as if I am their marketing research, not just professor, but employer, and they are my team, and I'm building them the way I would in the workplace.
Yeah.
But we don't always have the time for that, because one, we're stuck with 60 students a semester. So it's 10 different groups in 12 weeks. It's very difficult. And the other side of it is that the students have not all bought in, because they know all they need to do is pass the course, get the grade. They're not looking for education's sake. They're just looking to get to the next point. And I think that's really, really sad right now that we've done this to our kids. We've done it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I've got a granddaughter who's in Hawaii now taking her master's degree in animal science, which is a very complicated, her specialty is genetics.
Mhm.
And I was what I used to call a diploma guy. School, I took mathematics and physics, and you might have heard the story. I very quickly realized that unless I was going to get a master's or a doctorate, that education was much too specific for me. And teaching, I think, requires the teacher to be able to communicate especially well with the audience, because the students are at different levels of understanding.
Sure.
And if you cannot interact, as opposed to, it's, the term dialogue is Greek for flow of meaning. Too many professors stand in the front of the room, what I call the sage on the stage, the bro, listen to me, I know everything. And they can't interact because they couldn't defend the position. If you can't do that, when you get out into the real world, you're dead meat.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We also have the unfortunate, what we call them, the blackboard teachers, who teach like this.
Yep.
Facing the blackboard, not facing the
Yeah,
students.
and I stopped doing that a long time ago, because my forehead starts here, but it ends there. So if I'm in the back, it's just like you got a smiley face in front of you. It's, but teaching, and I believe that's why what we're doing with the lecture series is the way of the future. There's, as I mentioned to you, there's a guy at MIT who teaches a class, The Secret of Life, and everybody has to take that class if you want a degree from MIT. He has the class online for free, worldwide. He has same exact class. He's got 3 cameras. He's a wonderful teacher, and he's a brilliant scientist. When you can get that, now we're going to get into a different world where here's the expert, and everybody's going to be craving that class. And any place that's got access to the internet, which is becoming more ubiquitous every day,
Absolutely,
is going to be able to get this education for free. Talk about leveling the playing field across the world.
yes. Well, they have to be open to it.
Oh, of course.
Have to be open to it, because there's a lot of fields like real estate agent, doctors, accountants, who have to do their recertification credits, right?
Yep.
So every 24 months we have to do it.
Yep.
But are you actually doing it to learn, or are you doing it to check off a box? And when you're doing it to check off a box, I've seen many occasions where it's just playing next to you with the sound off so you can actually track it. The benefit you have to internally buy in to want to improve yourself, to believe that this education will be valuable. And I just want to say, as an aside, if you take either of my lecture series, they will be.
Yeah, no,
I'm in marketing. I've got to market.
yeah, no, I agree with you. And what we're up against is this change notion. It's been since the 60s, I think, that governments have been pushing that if you want your children to succeed, they've got to go to university. And somewhere in the range of 50% of the technical schools in America have shut over the last 15, 20 years due to lack of interest. And if you want to try and find a plumber, an electrician.
It's a huge mistake. Plumbers, electricians are making low to mid six figures. People who work in construction, you can't outsource those jobs, right? When you're building a house, it has to be built in the spot. Yeah, yes, you can, have some prefab and put together, but at the end of the day, you want your water, your roads, your electricity, all of that has to be local. If we don't have the local expertise to do it, we're going to end up being in third world country situations.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting as we transition. And I'm in a quote, the baby boomer side. And Peggy Noonan from the Wall Street Journal just put up something about the problem that working from home is causing to society.
Yeah.
That, you got to get back to the office because that's where you meet your wife or husband. That's where you find your enemies. That's where how you learn to overcome different things. That's how you learn the political game at work. And what you just said, plumbers, electricians, most of the people that make the world turn don't have the option of working from home. They got to go to a job site.
Absolutely.
And so what we're talking about, again, is the elite big business circumstance. And I don't believe that they understand that robotics and analytical intelligence and data analytics are going to replace a lot of big businesses' work. Robots are going to take over a lot of jobs. They can't displace the guy that's got to go or the gal that's got to go to to be a barista. You got to be there to make the coffee, to sell something at a drugstore.
You got to be there, and also to build the roads, to build the structures.
Yeah,
that's where honestly a lot of good money jobs are.
No
and
question.
we are not valuing these people for the valuable contributions that they actually make. Look how important all the grocery store clerks became to us during the first months of COVID, as opposed to these $1 million sports stars. They were not important. All those games were canceled. All we cared about was, can I get toilet paper? Can I get eggs? Where is my milk?
So these people that make the world turn, they don't have access to learning experiences until now, where we can have these lecture series. Somebody who's interacting with the public, wouldn't it be wonderful if they knew what marketing was? Wouldn't it be wonderful if they knew how to overcome objectives? Wouldn't it be wonderful if they could influence the people they interact with? Nobody does that now. I believe this is a trailblazer.
Well, I would say that if you're talking about someone who's been in customer service for 10, 15 years, purely out of vocational, they'll watch the series and they'll say, oh, I do that. I didn't realize that had a marketing basis. Oh, I do that. Now I can see how I can improve it and tweak it a little bit more to take advantage of this marketing learning. So I believe that people who have been involved will see themselves in the lecture series as well.
No, I agree with that 100%. And what really appeals to me is creating the platform for those people to have access to something that heretofore they haven't had. You talked about professional certifications, doctors, lawyers, yourselves, teachers, having to every 2 years. We've got a lady by the name of Barbette Culpepper that's working with states across America to get our classes put into the curriculum so that it would qualify for those. And she's going to be successful. We're working with workforce development companies, trying to provoke, a car dealership or an engine repair shop to engage their employees more in continuous improvement, because that has gone away.
Yeah, it's important. It makes people feel more loyal to their company when they feel that their company is investing in them as well.
Yep, it's absolutely true. And, Wall Street Journal just did a survey maybe a month ago, or Gallup, 41% of the workers in America right now are currently considering leaving their employment. It's an interesting transition period. COVID has compressed a lot of change into a very short period of time, which is very traumatic. It's caused
Oh, yeah.
all manner of, oh my God.
I am known as being like a tech. I'm like a human pinch. If you remember from Ocean's 11, I walk into any room and the internet goes down. So for me to have to transition to online learning within days, that was our mandate. I was teaching on Adobe. I was teaching on Zoom. I was teaching through Teams. I had to learn how to function in the way I am right now, in this little box, and somehow reach out to 60 poor students who were terrified, feeling disconnected, wondering if they were going to pass and how they were going to pass and how we were going to get them through this. We've learned, baptism by fire. We've been building the plane as we've been flying it, as the dean of the JMSB program.
I'm going to go even further. We're building the plane as we're coming down the runway. We're not sure that we're ever going to take off. And
no. I'm sorry, we took off.
So you're up there with a wing.
I was up there as the pilot with my students there, and all the ground control was going, we don't know how you're going to land.
So what becomes also, I think, really interesting is now the results come in as to the level of learning during virtual education. And if that doesn't expose the skills of the teacher, I don't know what does. Yeah. This transition is very painful. I don't know if you see it down here, but the teachers unions and some of the labor unions are really pushing back on adapting and changing to the marketplace. Marketing's all about adapting to the audience, and the audience is constantly changing.
Absolutely. Look, there are some students who loved learning online. That was they loved the ability to get up at 8 o'clock in the morning, literally roll out of bed, turn on their screen and be in class. And that's fine. But there were other students who, if that was their setup, would fall asleep in the middle of class and had no learning. That just to say, just because you're in the classroom at 8:45 in the morning doesn't mean you don't fall asleep. There were plenty of students that I saw like this by 9:15.
Yeah.
But this allows choice. This is amazing. If you want to learn online, you can learn online. If you want to learn in person, you can learn in person. In my humble opinion, the online university experience is for the 18 to 24-year-olds who are supposed to be actually going to university. I believe personally that it's better to be in person. There's so much value added, so much team building, so much communications that we're lacking the skills. The youth are lacking the skills. Like I always make the joke, that's that phone, that box that you hold in your hand, your cell phone. It's a phone. You can actually dial numbers and talk to people through it. It's not just for texting. And they laugh and they roll their eyes. But I mean, ask a 15-year-old to make a phone call. It's like you're asking them to walk the plank.
Yeah. My granddaughter, who's now 21, they both, my grandson and granddaughter had birthdays at the end of June, beginning of July. So they're still, in my view, Neve's 20 and Declan's 16. And you're absolutely right that some people went with virtual learning. That's just perfect for my grandson because there's no distractions. He did incredibly well. My granddaughter, who's a maniac, she got her degree in 3 years because when the pandemic hit, she went through 2 years of university and 1 year at home. Fine. So it worked for them. But a lot of the kids, my daughter teaches in a very distressed area, and having internet connections is not common. And so if we seem, unless you are able to get out of your home because you don't have enough money to have a computer at home and go to a library or go to a common space, you're being left behind.
Right. Yeah.
And the dilemma we have as a society, this is a fine experiment, but the results are going to come in 10 and 20 and 30 years from now, when the generation that's going through virtual for the last 2 years or whatever the time period was, they've lost a year of schooling.
Yeah.
And the studies are in. It's very clear they've lost a year of learning. Now, what's that going to do to their income capacity in 20 years? They'll be back a year. They won't have the same curve. And how does society respond to that? The education is critical, but not just university. I agree with you on the need for a campus, but I think that's like a finishing school, not the primary school.
Well, that's why I'm saying it's the university experience. So the clubs, the case competitions, all of the networking events, actually being able to visit your professor, if you choose to, in their office and discuss the finer points of the lecture. That to me is the perfect, the vision, dream university experience. Plus you join a frat or sorority, have a couple of drinking games, that type of stuff. But I think that's what was totally missed out on online learning. There's no, and even as the students go back to campus, they've lost that institutional knowledge of, where do you go to get the best burrito, and where do you go to hang out with to meet the professors that are actually going to help you in your future career. That's lost as well, which I find is unfortunate.
Well,
but I do believe that we do have to encourage the youth to be free to take university education or vocational education. We need to revalue that.
It almost becomes an assessment of skills, needs, learning profiles, personality profiles, so that people, like when I came out of school, it was a tough time economically, and I wanted to work for IBM in programming or whatever. And they weren't hiring, so I had to wander around. One of our neighbors, where I grew up, offered. He ran a big company, and I spent a week with their human resources people doing tests, and it said that I would be perfect as a farmer, which is kind of an interesting aside. But in high school, children need, parents need to start having an understanding of what turns their child on. What are they passionate about? And we don't do that. The guidance counselors are a really, really critical job function in life today, much more so than ever before. And let me give one other little example that, that interaction, that experience on the campus. If you look at society and you go back, that's the European squares. On the weekend, everybody was in the square, sitting down, chatting with their neighbors, chatting, the socialization. There's an old joke in Italy that the men would go in a clockwise direction and the women would go on counterclockwise, and they were flirting as they went by, and that's how you met your wife or husband.
You mean promenade, like they talk about in Bridgerton?
Sure, we've got to create what that new one is. We don't know what it is yet, but it'll get there.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Yeah, so let's talk about your lectures specifically. Yeah. At the end of the lecture, you've got a 5-question quiz.
Yes.
Do you think there's a place for a more comprehensive assessment or not?
Oh, there always is more. Personally, those are the multiple choice questions. To me, they're just checking to make sure we have watched the video. There is, I'm more than happy to discuss with anybody who would like to reach out to me any finer points of the lecture. I believe giving a mini case study would be a better way to test if the knowledge has been absorbed. But that requires, as I've learned in my teaching experience, a lot of correcting hours.
Yeah, and that's the penalty that most people don't see about teaching. You know, the amount of time that you have to do outside of the classroom, both class prep and then exams and grading papers. But one of the things you and I talked about a little bit earlier on is how classroom teaching and virtual teaching require different preparation and skills of the teacher.
Yes.
Maybe you
When
want
I'm
to talk to
classroom
that a bit.
When I'm class, I have the same general outline when I'm classroom teaching versus online teaching. But when I'm classroom teaching, because the students are right in front of me, I can see when they're laughing. I can see what is resonating. And when they have those look in their eyes that they're saying to me, Bonnie, nothing is getting in. I do not understand. So I can repeat, I can look at them and go, did you have a question? I can be more off the cuff, extraneous presentation, as they say. But when I'm presenting online, it's a script. Everything has to be as perfect as possible. So I hit the 52 minutes or 55-minute requirement. I have to, in my mind, anticipate, based on all my experiences teaching live, what the online audience will be questioning or thinking about in their head, and then hopefully be there with the right answer. And again, if I'm not, feel free to reach out to me by email. I'm happy to speak to anybody who is interested in marketing. But that is the difference in the challenge is the fact that when I'm teaching live, things will change. I'll have a few stories in my head, the pretty much exact same stories that I'll be doing online, but a student could have a question that just changes everything, and we go with it. Something could have happened in the papers the day before that I will go with.
Yep.
I love my class. I always love to rip from the headlines, like Law and Order.
Yeah, no, it's very valid. Maybe, and one of the points that I want to make is the content that is out there from Bonnie, we had nothing to do with. Bonnie was a complete free agent. We didn't interfere. We didn't edit. We didn't, you know,
disavow yourselves from my opinions. That's cool.
Well, no, I think it's important that the audience understand this is your education.
Yes.
And you know, in virtual learning, what they're saying, in classroom learning too, is that if you can break the lecture term down, you increase learning and retention. So what we've done is we've segmented all of our classes. We have videos, and the classes now have between 4 and 10 segments that are all videos, and they end with a quiz. And professors are doing that now in the classroom because we've got this technology. We've got tablets, we've got phones, we've got laptops. Everybody can communicate with me now. So we put up on the board, here's a question, and we wait a minute for people to get the answer, and the professor can see the results right now.
Yeah, we can do polls on Zoom. We can use Kahoots. We could see how people are responding, how many people in the class actually got the answer. I can even see, we take attendance like that, and we can actually see if students are texting in from different IP addresses or not actually in the classroom. They'll come up with everything.
They would have caught me, I'll tell you, because I was a very rare attendee to classes. I was too busy doing other things.
Well, listen, I've been in marketing, I would say, since CEGEP, since I'm 17 years old. I was one of the first marketing representatives for the Canadian Club Price, or Costco as they call it now. I did marketing in CEGEP. I did marketing in my bachelor's. I have a master's degree in marketing. I worked in a marketing department in the banks, in politics, for different educational companies. That's really the basis of everything I've done. And I'm hope that all my lectures are sharing my knowledge and my experiences with you all in a very fun way, because that's my educational philosophy. Edutainment, or funjucation, I've heard is the new one.
Yeah, it's, you know, I used to tease nobody would fall asleep in the classroom with me. It's impossible. On the virtual side, it's easy. And one of the things that we're trying to do with the way we structure things, and the way you structure things too, is somebody can start the lecture and they get interrupted, a phone call or somebody comes in, they can pause it and they can come back to exactly where it was that they left. You know, life is pretty nice now, if you think about that. Sunday morning, it's quiet time for somebody, boom, our podcast, people driving, listen to the podcast. This one will go up on Vimeo and it'll go up on YouTube and it'll be the same thing. So I think it's a very, very exciting time, but really challenging for learners.
Yeah.
It's hard for
plus and minus all the way.
Yeah, it's hard for people to understand where the resource is. You know, we can do these searches with the golden age of information. We can find the answer to just about every question, but the real deal is, what are you going to do about it?
And the other question is that the real answer? Is that the real answer? How do we have the navigation skills to be able to validate everything that we're seeing on the internet? Right now, we know that the silo effect exists. Anything that I search on the internet is dependent on my past searches. So the Google is trying to serve me as a customer by providing me with the information it thinks I want.
Yeah, not just that, Bonnie. I agree with that 100%. Not just that. It's the competing views. We're having dinner last night, 5 of us, and we're talking about the World Trade Center, the before and after, and the effect of religion. And the comment was, well, it was mostly Muslims that died. And it was my granddaughter's comment. And I said, well, where the heck did you get that from? Oh, that's pretty common knowledge. I said, really? I said, you know, have a look and see what it was. And she did, bless her heart. She's open-minded and is curious. And there were 47 people that were Muslims in the folks that died at the World Trade Center. And I said, what does that tell you? She said, obviously, I needed to do more research before I came to any conclusion. But individuals aren't challenged on the development of their conclusion, which is also one of the things that in education we've lost. Like you were talking earlier, the view that a lot of children have or people have at school is the back of their teacher, because they're on the whiteboard or blackboard or gray board or whatever the heck it is.
Yeah. Teaching
and learning have to evolve. And when you leave school, that's truly when learning begins.
That's in French. In Quebec, we have an expression, je vais coucher moins niaiseux ce soir, which means tonight I will go to bed less stupid. Yeah. That's exactly what it means. And honestly, that is my lifelong philosophy. I want to learn something every single day. That's what will keep me young. That's what will keep everybody young, keeping neurons firing. There's actually a story of a sect of nuns, older women, like in their 70s, 90s, all the way up there. And how they maintain their mental acuity is they change their functions every 10 years. So the woman who's in charge of the gardening and the food and the cooking all of a sudden becomes the philosophy teacher. And the philosophy teacher is now in charge of the bookkeeping. And they really reinvent themselves to keep their neurons firing. I think that's what we need to do as humans, improve ourselves every single day. I'm a big fan of education, almost as big a fan of education as I am of Star Trek.
It's the Japanese philosophy of Kaizen. Every day I'm going to do my job a little bit better. It might be 1/100%, doesn't matter. It's better. And learning, curiosity is an attribute that I think everybody's got. You know, it's I'd like to say that everybody in life, everybody on the planet, 8 billion or whatever it is people, have 3 shots at a brass ring. And I'm going to say the brass ring is a life-altering experience. It has nothing to do with money or career or status. It's your life changes. And, you know, my granddaughter, she's a bit of a geek and she works really hard. And one of those brass rings for her was in high school. She did a project at UCLA in science. And it allowed, she was in her junior year, so the second to last year of high school. In Quebec, that would be grade 10, before CEGEP. And she's down at the university campus, away from home, couple of weeks, working with, there were qualifiers to get in, but working with people that were equally as diligent, intelligent, whatever you want to call her. And she realized, oh, I'm okay in this environment. Number one. Number two, they had to do research and stand up in front of 500 people and make a presentation. And at 16, that altered her life.
Yeah.
You know, so wow. And everybody has them. The trick with these things, though, Bonnie, is not everybody can see them or recognizes them. So we don't have the opportunity to deviate. We left Quebec in 77, left my family, my wife left her family, we went 3,000 miles away. Now, 100 years ago, if you did that, you would never see them again.
Yeah.
You would never communicate with them again. It was, now you can FaceTime.
Yeah. And here we are.
Yeah. Yeah. It's unbelievable. I got, you know, I don't know what the number is, something over 8 million miles in airplanes. I don't need to do that anymore. I can do this.
Yes.
So I don't have to go through 12-hour time zone changes to talk to Europe. I can do it here. I'm in the morning, there at night, and away we go.
Yeah, and that has altered the way we do human resource management. We now call it talent acquisition because we realize that we have to give people work-life balance. We went, you know, with this online environment, we go from being available 24/7 to people realizing, wait a minute, I shouldn't be available 24/7. I need to have a life. So, you know, that's also a function of business, understanding when you need to pull back.
Yeah, I think, I hope most people during the pandemic had the opportunity to re-examine their lives and find out what's truly important to them.
And that is why we lost all the bus sports.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's also, you know, having the lifelong learning platform has got all manner of things to do to make it complete. And, you know, we're kind of early adopters, aren't we, of some of this process. One of our
We're hoping.
yeah, no, it's there. One of our early adopters is, or the contributors is Sarah Hanks, who was an engineer at General Electric and got all of the Lean and Six Sigma and all of that training, data analytics, et cetera. And she talks about, in anything that she does, she looks for early adopters. As a teacher, we have the same thing. And we kind of deal with that in the form of quizzes, or in the real classroom, the discussion, in the virtual classroom, the quiz.
Yeah.
Where are you? Are you with me? And it's really hard to do that virtually.
Yeah, we could do, I mean, we could, I guess, alternate it so that the quiz pops up every 2 or 3 slides instead of at the end. But the reality, look, you know, when my daughter was in grade 11 and studying for midterms, my husband was like, she's going to study. She's going to spend all day, all night studying. She's got to get A's. And I looked at him and I said, listen, sweetheart, we can bring her to her room. We can tie her arms behind her back. We can put toothpicks in her eyes and angle her head to the book. But if she doesn't want to absorb the material, she will not. And that's the way it is for everybody. I implore you to enjoy the classes, to watch the videos, to reach out to me if you want to engage further. But the only person in this service encounter who knows whether or not they're going to actually take in the education is you, the student. The same way when I was a bank manager and I was a loan officer, I would meet with the potential loanee, ask all these questions, do their credit check. But the only person in that conversation who actually knew for real or for true whether they were going to pay back the loan was not me, was the other person.
It's an amazing thing. I think you've done a wonderful job with these lectures and the lecture series. I think the evolution, the basic marketing start, and then the market research second, and just keep on pushing the social media marketing piece that you're going to do next year, I don't know that there's many people that understand how to approach that. Most
Well,
businesses that have a website,
mhm.
how do they know whether it's effective or not?
Well, just to say the social media marketing I'll be covering in the advanced promotional topics. The one that I'm going to be doing next year is social marketing. So,
Sorry, I
our
misunderstood.
buddy, my one of my big mentor. I'm a big fan, like I said, of Star Trek. So unfortunately, just recently, last couple of days, Nichelle Nichols passed away. She was Lieutenant Uhura. And what she and Captain Kirk did in the 1960s was they had the first interracial kiss on television. Ooh, that was crazy to think about in the 60s. But the reason we were able to actually view it and show it on television is because we took it from a pop culture point of view where we were projecting it into the future, right? But now, think about it. Look at the television. Diversity is everywhere. That's what social marketing is about. And I love the fact that pop culture pushes the boundaries and then it goes into the mainstream, the commercial market.
Yeah.
Another example, when my parents, and I think we've talked about this before, when my parents would leave a bar, what they would say, and I'm sure, Ron, you've said too, let's have one for the road. Like, think about that. In the 1960s and 70s, we take a shot and leave. And now public policy, which is also a function of social marketing, has changed so that the young kids who get their license are not even allowed to have a drop of alcohol in their system for the first 24 months that they have a license. So we've changed in 50 years, and that's the classic social marketing example, from one for the road to none for the road.
Well, you're gonna laugh at this.
Okay.
I got involved with teaching athletics. So I was skiing in the wintertime and swimming and tennis and golf in the summertime, but there's two seasons that are kind of dead meat, like spring. Skiing's done. We're not ready for the warm weather. Here's fall. Summer's done. There's no snow yet. So a group of guys and I would go to the same bar, and we were all instructors in all of this stuff. The maitre d' at the bar took our car keys when we walked in, and he would not give us, and this is the 60s, he would not give it back. He saved my life. I can't tell you how many times.
But that's very avant-garde. That's very avant-garde for that time period.
Oh, hell yes. Unbelievable. His name was Fernando. He was wonderful.
He saved your life.
No question. And not just mine. I'm sure many, although he didn't take the keys. We were regulars every Thursday night. It's where I met my wife. A group of us went on Friday night, and that's where we met. And we don't need to go to the business to do these things, to interact. There's other platforms, but the democratization of education, having everybody having access to the same products, same opportunities, that is such a powerful thing that 100 years from now, 50, whatever the time period is, society is going to be the beneficiary of that.
I agree. And none of this ridiculous splitting hairs. You can't go to this school. You can't go to that school. I know, for example, here in Quebec, we have this ridiculous CEGEP system called R-scores. And if you got 78 instead of 80 on one of their mathematical classes, it closes you off to entry to a whole slew of universities for 2 marks, because of the way the scoring goes. It's ridiculous. We become a society that has too many tranches, too many sections, too many levels for people to achieve.
Yeah, and the algorithms that people are creating that make those decisions are being created by people that don't understand what the audience is that they're trying to appeal to.
Right.
I got to have people that have 80% on this, like you say, not 79, One of the guys I went to school with had a photographic memory. And I remember him sitting in the hallway prior to an exam, and he was just flipping pages because he could read fast too. He got 100% on the exam. That was in we met again the next year. And I was talking to him about that subject and had nothing. There was nothing in his head about it. It's as if he never existed in that classroom.
That's it. Exactly what I was telling you before. When the students study just to regurgitate, put it in, put it out. Once it's gone, they have no ability to absorb it. And that's what I really like. If I can, as we say in Quebec, flatte myself. That's what I really like about my marketing lecture series. I'm telling you stories. Every theory has a story with it, so you can visualize how it's happening in real life. And once you go through that 10-part series, you're going to look at commercials in a different way. You're going to go, oh, that's the humor. Oh, that's how they link in the brand. You're going to see the colors. How is it that my brand is green and white? Everybody in the commercial happens to be wearing a green shirt. That's marketing, that's branding, that's creating a visual image for you to store in your head to call up to when you think about that product.
Yeah, I think it's going to be successful. I think people are going to enjoy the learning process. I thank you for your contributions here and your energy. I look forward to seeing what happens. Is there any kind of coda, any wrap up that you'd like to put on this discussion?
Just that I think that marketing is the key to connecting with your clients. I think that marketing research is the key to being proactively there, successful, being at the right place at the right time with the right product, the right message to your right target. That is the whole goal of marketing. And I really hope that I will be able to convince to marketing to all of you.
Thank you very much, Bonnie. And thank you for those of you listening. We appreciate your attendance. We hope you got something out of this. And I look forward to having Bonnie back and you back at a future Candid Conversation. Mahalo.